Okay, so we got to this point here in this whole thing about scaling, and there are other pieces, as you can see, well, money and language, really fun, interesting things, and I'll come back to them in later lectures. But I think the idea of scaling is out there, so you've already done your assignment, so we're going onwards. All right, so this was this piece from Betancourt, right, that and colleagues, and that started a whole body of work, much of it from them, but many other people have sort of come along on scaling of human population aspects with city sizes. And this was this odd thing, how do you measure city size? You would think it's kind of easy, but you have to sort of work with some of the data that is available, right? Sometimes it's like a political boundary and so on, but you kind of want what is the blob of the city, what's the functioning city size. All right, so they've worked hard on that sort of thing. We looked at these kinds of scalings, and there was this general story claim, right? This is the first work on this claim that social kinds of things tend to have a superlinear scaling, infrastructure type things have a sublinear scaling. So there's this return to scale, right? There's this nice feature that bigger cities require less of certain things relatively, and they produce some good things, although there's disease and crime seems to go up as well. So this was the story, and what I wanted to add just here is that there's been some work to show that not all social things go that way. All right, so this is this general story. I don't know why that weird little thing is in there. Anyway, so this is all good. This was the residual piece, which is very important, and we'll come back to that in various ways. Right, and we got a nice shout out for ourselves here. Burlington for patents is punching above its weight when its weight is completely renormalized. This is a piece that, if you're interested, it's a theoretical piece, right? Lots of attempts to sort of work through an actual model-based story of how people interact and move around, giving rise to this superlinear scaling. Sixology, right? So it's 1 plus a 6, 1, and 1 minus a 6. So 5, 6, 1, and 7, 6 are these apparently special scaling exponents. Maybe. All right, this is the piece I wanted to add. I guess I have a couple slides for it. It's Melo et al. From just a few years ago now. And so superlinear scaling, as I said, for crime and disease, all these things, the social phenomena. But it turns out that that's not entirely true. So they looked at a couple of death statistics, so homicide, traffic, and suicide. They're complicated things, right? This is suicide is, I think I have it here, right? This is a famous, it's Durkheim, right? I mean, this is very famous studies and thinking about these sorts of things, going back a long time, hard to work with. We do have work here. We're trying to get to things like depression and suicide through social media, trying to help people through that. So if that's something you're interested in, that's a story lab work. So it turns out that homicide seems to have this superlinear scaling, which isn't like a great thing, right? But that seems to be there. Traffic does not. Seems to be independent of city size. I'm sure Boston is an outlier, but this seems to scale like this. This is for Brazil. This is all data for Brazil. And suicide actually appears to go sublinearly, right? So this would seem to be a good story, that the social, having people around you, which is Durkheim's story really, is actually beneficial. So more nuanced, right? But it's still, you could still say there's a this is sensible. Of course, you can have a story for everything. They did some nice stuff. I'll just sort of point to this, trying to look at scale. So these are their trying to fit things in various ways. You see it's pretty messy, so you've had to do some sneaky stuff to make this work out. This is looking at the residuals, right? So this is as population gets kind of a residual, right? You're taking out the trend, so the relative fraction is going down. Per population, it's normalized, that's what it is. So you can see the, right, per population for traffic's pretty flat, homicide goes up, maybe. And this is all still, the data's there, but it's all still rough work, I suppose. This is to say over time, things haven't really changed. These are these exponents. They haven't changed enormously, so you could look at this. This is just, I'm putting this up here because it's an interesting thing to do. Look at temporal changes. Maybe there's a story here, but, it could be just, the error bars would suggest there is, but that's not always how these things work. And they did some work for the US as well and found this suicide data scaled in the same way.